connected to everything, and that's why I'm in everything. All eyes on everything. That means
no, you singing no.
eyes connected to everything.
Okay, is it okay for me to?
Go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. This is God level things from things that people don't want to. Oh my God! Now they messed it all up. This is things that people don't want to talk about coming to you live. I'm actually on the boat right now, so please excuse me. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a mother. I'm a nurse. I'm an aunt. I'm a friend. I'm a cousin. I have this podcast. I'm an entrepreneur. I am everything good. John, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
John Skywalker, the Sly Talker here, lyricist, spoken word artist, martial artist, personal trainer, lover of life, student of psychology, and I'm a father who has his 5th album streaming on all major platforms right now. Final Dimensions, Final Dimension, Final Dimension, Final Dimension. John Skywalker's the name. Go stream that. Real hip hop, positive hip hop, light music. Bam.
Diamond, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
Yes, I am Sabah Diamond, life coach, entrepreneur, personal trainer, nutritionist, and I was trying to get my 4th album done, really the first one, but John is already on his 5th, so I'm just going to give up in that case and just let John do his thing. So proud of my little brother doing his thing. But as always, a loving brother of these beautiful beings on this podcast, a loving father and grandfather, and I am everything good. I say.
King Newborn, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
Peace, peace, peace. This is King Newborn. You can follow me on all social media platforms. And Newborn everything. Again, this is King Newborn. As I always say, I am of service. And yes, please do check out Final Dimensions. But yet, John, how many albums do you currently have?
Yeah, I say 5. It's actually more than that. It's more than that. I always say dimensions, higher dimensions, light benders, law of affirmations, and final dimension. But there's more out there. I enter the first eye, enter the third eye. That's my first one. Transcendence. I got other ones out there, but I just always list those 5.
Peace.
Where you at, Jay-Z?
Go ahead and represent yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Ivy. I can't say the Sly Talker. I don't have any of that to add to me. I'm just known on TikTok and other places as Inattentive Ivy. I'm a retired broadcast journalist from the Army. I speak about mental health, ADHD, and some other things within mental health for Black girls. And I am a lover of life, lover of all things. Yeah, I'm coming out with an album. No, I'm just playing. I'm not coming out with an album. Right. And I'm just so blessed and honored to be here with you guys on this wonderful podcast.
Excellent.
There's not a whole lot I can do except for just hang out in the background while you all do what you do. Tonight's topic is anxiety. I will chime in and out, but considering where I'm at on this water, I'm here, but I'm gonna let you all handle it tonight.
Understood. All right, well, it's true. I mean, since we got the whole congregation here, well, at least part of the congregation here, let's start off with the foundation. How do we define anxiety?
Want to talk about from personal experience for me and anxiety?
You can get personal experience, and then we can probably, come up with an operational definition. But yeah, how do you define anxiety?
For me, anxiety feels like a tightening of just everything, like your body, soul, and spirit. To me, literally, like I know when I have anxiety, when somatically I feel like I can't breathe, like my chest is not getting a lot of oxygen. Whenever like thoughts are racing, things of that sort, like those are my definitions of anxiety. And it could be based off of a current event, an event from in the past. It can be just because, maybe all the 17 hamsters that I talk about all the time, maybe one of them got off the wheel and decided he wanted to go left. And that's the reason why I'm feeling anxiety, because I'm like, no, you're supposed to be on your track. So anxiety, I think is defined by just a lot of just a built up, just tightness in your body,
Okay, I like that one.
Yeah. I mean, I could always go to Webster's. We can
Well,
figure out what this. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that anxiety also is that extreme reaction to, like, it's the reaction to stressful, like, or unfamiliar situations, uncertainty, it's uneasiness, distress, or like something that you maybe it's actually, to me, it's almost linked to a feeling of unassuredness. It's like that in an extreme way too, when it comes to certain anticipated situations and things like that. So you might, you know, increase the heart rate, increase the rate of breathing, and things like that. And nervous systems is kind of going to hyperdrive. So it's the opposite end of this of being depressed, of course. It's and it's still the cortisol, or more so adrenaline, is what's pumping through the body in high amounts as well. So so the physiological effects is still debilitating on the organs if it's prolonged. So that's why it's good to have ways, as I know we'll talk about, of coming down off that. So that was my definition.
Okay, okay. King Newborn, what is anxiety to you?
Um, hmm. I guess a overwhelming feeling of nervousness when you get to, like he said, I want to say, to the unknown in general, on any level, just the unknown. The brain doesn't compute or process what's about to happen, finna happen, beyond a certain set of decisions within control and without control. So I think it's just part of, in my opinion, a safety mechanism to make sure that you stay aware in all senses, um, for whatever's about to happen, no matter what it may be. Again, based off of the unknown. So that's how I look at it. Not saying that's the definition. I'm not saying that. I mean, if you just asking me, I'm saying that's what I think it is.
Oh, okay. Um, I would say that anxiety is a normal and natural response to a perceived threat or even stress. Um, I agree with the feelings of apprehension. Uh, I would even go as far as to say that anxiety is an offspring of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a sense of uneasiness. Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. Um, but yeah, so that's emotional, right? But anxiety also kind of it manifests, and she said somatic. She said somatic. So there is a physical expression of anxiety. It can manifest physically as well. There's tension in the muscles. There's heart rate increasing. There's sweating. There's trembling. That one's for me. Trembling. There's a lot of that when I'm anxious. But I think it's also evolutionary. It's an evolutionary mechanism that helps us to somewhat prepare for a stressor, or prepare for a perceived danger, prepare for a perceived threat. Right? I really do think at times it can be helpful, as it allows us to stay alert and focus on what's
Mm-hmm.
happening. But as Saba was implicating here, it's when it's persistent or it's prolonged where it becomes a problem. Even more so when it's inappropriate, as in you don't really have a physical reason. You don't have anything in your environment that really indicates or signals the need, or yeah, I'd say the need for anxiety, right?
Hmm.
So I do believe that anxiety can help us prepare for a possible threat. And I think that's very key because, fear typically prepares us for an immediate threat. Anxiety is when you're forecasting, right? And there also there tends to be a a sense where you've lost control, or there's no way that you can really predict the outcomes. So there's like a sense of control, a loss of control, or a need for control, even though we don't really control anything, but it's tied into that because of the fear, right? So
Yeah.
you're in a
Let me ask you a
situation.
question.
Oh, go ahead.
So are you equating anxiety with fight or flight?
I was gonna ask about that.
It so I
Yeah.
it's not the same, because fight or flight is just the response, right? And it's usually tied to fear. But we use those similar mechanisms in anxiety, right? So let's just say, all right, I'm about to prepare for a performance, stage performance. Classic example for me. So my system is overacting. My neurological system is overacting, and it's, having a ripple effect on my mind and my body, right? So there's a part of me that's trying to avoid the situation in order to soothe or calm myself down. All right, this stimulus, it could be the people, it could be just my ideas about what the people are thinking or feeling, or even what they're going to do. I'm trying to develop a defense mechanism towards that. So it's going to be rooted in my fight, flight, or freeze response, which is why there are times where you get on stage, you're about to sing or perform, and you freeze up, right? So you would think, oh, okay, he's afraid. Okay, yeah, it's rooted in that, but we're still talking about anxiety. So before I've even performed, I'm freezing up. Before I've even performed, I'm like, yo, I need to get up out of here. Right. And then I don't know about the fight part yet. That part I'm not so
Okay.
sure about.
Well, only because it's in the face. I think there's a certain level, and I think anxiety is an extreme reaction to
Mhm.
perceive stress or threats. Normal, because you did use the word normal, and I'm just saying when it comes to that. So normal in the face of a threat, we do have this uh, uh, certain degree of anxiety that slips in there, but which prepares us for dealing with the threat itself. So physiologically, the the arteries and veins narrows, the eyes, the pupils also narrow. We also burn through all of our stored sugars. So the glycogen in our cells, we burn through it because it now puts sugar into the bloodstream to be ready to be utilized for energy and things like that. That's the function of the hormone cortisol at this time. And the adrenaline is actually the part that actually brings the other physiological responses, right? So we got these hormones that's telling us, hey, we're in the face of a threat. But even in that particular time, we can also there's a certain focus that we can get. Sometimes in anxiety, though, when dealing with anxiety, it's that focus that seems to not come into play. Is that because there's there's still this prolonged extreme reaction to a perceived threat or a stressful situation. So that's going to be an extreme reaction versus the normal reaction to a perceived threat, which is still opposite of depression. Uh, but even in fight or flight, again, you're making a decision: am I going to stay and fight this, or am I going to flee, or am I going to freeze? You see, so you have flight, fight, or freeze that you can under normal situations in the face of a threat. Anxiety comes when, like as you said, even when there's no threat present, anxiety can start to happen just at the thought of something. There's no
Yeah.
physical um, threat presence, you know. So anyway, so this is just a way to the way that I've rationalized it. In fact, in dealing with people
But I want to hone in
with
on
the
that distinction you
sure.
made in terms of like the extreme, like you feel you said that anxiety is more extreme than fear.
No, well, see, fear. You have to understand, fear is an overall. that's the root.
Yeah.
Fear is the root, but
Hmm.
fear breeds certain states of mind.
Yeah.
So anxiety would be one of those.
Yeah.
Anger is another component
Yeah.
of fear.
Yeah.
Sadness and worry are other components of fear. So they're all fear based, but fear is the umbrella under which
Mm.
they all come.
Can I read something speaking of that? Because you made a really good point, right? I found something from the National Association of Mental Illness, the
Okay.
NAMI, right?
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
NAMI.
Just
Yeah.
yes, the NAMI. So NAMI whammy. They said that fear is an automatic emotion that helps us be conscious and vigilant about our safety, and anxiety is a reaction to fear, or another emotion is a reaction to fear. So Brother Diamond actually he had it right. I guess he's not saying like the difference between fear and anxiety is the fear comes from the okay. So I got a new therapist, right? I'm not gonna lie, he's an ADHD coach, and he told me that we a lot of times human beings we operate out of what he calls the lizard brain,
Yeah,
Reptilian.
the
Okay.
right?
R
The
complex.
reptilian brain, that
The R
part,
complex. Mm-hmm.
right? So he was saying that a lot of times fear comes from there. It comes from
Yeah.
that basic instinct for us to stay alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then it's like when that fear shoots to our prefrontal cortex and we try to make a decision out of that, then that's where the anxiety will come. That's where, like you said before, Brother Diavin, like the fear will come, different things of that sort. And he also told me this while you were talking about fight, flight, freeze. He says that
Mm-hmm.
there's a fourth component to that whole entire thing, which is called collapse. He
Okay.
was yeah, right. He was like, you
Okay.
got people who in terms of anxiety, like when they decide that they are in a place where they're not safe, they fight, they freeze, or else they just collapse. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? And he was like, that possum, like if you see a possum or something, like a possum would just be like, I'm playing possum, so that way no predator wants to come and
Oh, I see.
yeah, right.
I
Because
see that
nope.
it's still as a component of the freeze part, but okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay, but I
Yeah.
can see that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I was like, well, we kind of like is that like another way to saying that human beings we react to that with depression? I don't know. Just putting that out there. But yeah,
In
I
a
just thought that
way,
that was interesting.
well, in a way, but either way it goes, we're talking about conditionings that are
Mhm.
set up, and still what makes one go to one extreme or the other or stay balanced is the triggers that are already pre-set up, you know, pre-set up based on our past experiences and how we've dealt with these things.
Mhm.
And so many times, because like especially in our community, we don't know to go and deal with these things, and to get to seek therapy, to seek help, and things like that. So even I was talking to my auntie the other day and let her know about how her baby sister, which is my mother, how I grew up with so many traumatic experiences, but without understanding that they were traumatic experiences. I was moving through them, and there were some things that I could not help but to experience. For instance, I'm gonna throw myself out here, and I don't want to hear no funny jokes.
Mm.
But but I'm in middle school, and at some point I started wetting the bed again.
Mm.
Because of these traumatic experiences, and I wasn't trying to. It's not like I actually knew, but that began later on. I minored in psychology, and I understood that later that was a sign in a child that child was in distress, that it was
Mm.
having a stressful moment in their lives. And yes, at that time, we were standing in a condemned house, and when I say condemned, the plywood board was over the windows. There was no
Wow.
lights, no gas, no water. We had to go to the bathroom in little bowls and things like that. And we literally ate like we was in jail every single day, bologna sandwiches with some dry cheese, so it was that, and I was the stinky kid in school,
Wow.
at this time. So it was a lot that was going on. And on top of that, we was in that situation because of the situations that my mother chose to be in with her so-called boyfriends, the men in her life who were all abusive. And
Mm.
so oftentimes either sent us to a women's battered shelter or sent us in those kind of situations there. So we were trying to hide out and things like that, not knowing. And then when I get to school, I'm being bullied.
Mm.
So it was a lot of that going on as well. And I'm moving through these things. And all I know is that the only thing that was really on my mind at the time is that at the center of all of this, I know that there was some level of alcohol and drugs involved, not necessarily in my particular home, but in with the boyfriends who would drink all the time. I don't know what else they did, but I know there was some weed smoking, and but this is what made me decide never to do drugs or drink. So
Mm.
even at that time, and I stood on that. And I'll be 50 years old in a few weeks, and I still have not had a drop of liquor, haven't had a drag of anything in my life, and it
Wow.
all based on that decision I made as a child. But maybe that was that a form of anxiety, because I know it was stressful.
I think
That
that's
was
a
very
trauma
stressful.
response, right? That's a trauma
It could be
response,
a,
and it's yeah, and
yeah.
it's based off of the
Hmm.
anxiety that you felt when you were in that situation. At least that's my outside
Absolutely.
looking in, you know. I mean, somebody
Hmm.
even says, like a Facebook user, they said, it's like you were in a constant state of worry and uneasiness,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
So I think that
Constant.
that will come from there. Yeah, I mean, anything that's traumatic.
Yeah, it's very traumatic, and I
Yeah.
didn't realize it, but I moved through it, and I do know that when I got older, my emotion of charge, what came so easy was anger, because at some
Mm.
point I started to push back on it, and so I was always angry. It didn't take anything to really ultimately and utterly piss me off. It didn't
Mm.
take anything,
Mm.
and my response was always violence, either violent physically or with my words, you know. And it also worked against me, because I was in my heart, I wanted to build beautiful relationships. That didn't go together. Okay. So,
Mm.
this is why later on it was only through spiritual cultivation that I actually was able to turn around. I never did go get therapeutic help, but it was not until I went through a spiritual transformation that changed all of that. You
Wow.
see, which was still like a form of therapy for me, you know. So yeah, so all of that. But I don't know if I do get what John's saying too about the performing and the anxiety that you feel, right before a performance. I I still get that even when I do public speaking. When I do poetry or anything like that, I get that, and I
Those
think,
butterflies, right?
yeah. Oh man. But I also can use it as a form of motivation. But I
Yeah.
I feel like it actually makes my performance, good. And I think that that's just anxiety stemming more so from the passion
Mm.
of delivering right.
That's what you
Just
said,
make sure,
Ivy. Yeah.
yeah, just
It's the
passion of
passion.
delivering right. Yes. So it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
not, yeah, but that's still a component of fear, because you're so worried about not delivering right.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I only got this one shot, you know. So
Ah,
I've learned to relax in that, So I get that
yeah.
too, John.
I was about to
But
say
also, so it's I'm glad you guys mentioned some alternatives to that model, because that's a very old model, the fight, flight, or freeze model. It's a very old model, and it's being developed, right? Um,
Hmm.
when I was in school, we learned about tend and befriend.
mm,
Tend and
Oh,
befriend is another response. So uh, and they've studied animals, right? They studied animals to arrive at this model, and then they seen it in us. So and this is mammals, by the way. It has to be mammals. Um, good example is even today, Queen. She was she has a lot of anxiety. She has anxiety about everything. It's just in her family,
okay,
right?
okay,
Uh, and a lot of the times when she has anxiety, she'll come to me and she'll ask a question. It could be something like, oh, let me get back, Rudy. So today she was asking me about um Anna, about her staying with some relatives, right? She's gonna be fine, right, John? She's gonna be fine, right? And when she does that, I'll be rolling my eyes like, come on, man. If you don't see the signal from me, we're good. Just like if I don't go up, like the alarm ain't going off. So if I'm still kind of, straight face, no anxiety, right? But she has that. And so that's just one of the ways that we can sort of respond to anxiety is, all right, I'm going to go seek comfort with a friend. All right, someone who's a bit more level-headed, more balanced, more at peace with themselves, right?
are you getting the
You get
validation?
Yeah, it could be,
Yeah.
or that's
Mhm.
your anchor,
Yeah.
right?
hmm,
So
Yeah.
you're seeking some sort of security. And since you can't find it in yourself, you go with the someone outside of yourself to kind of anchor you. So that's the tend, right? It's or I'm sorry, that's the befriend part, right? So I'm seeking social support, I'm seeking emotional support from my anxiety. So boom, it's kind of like a cry for help in a sense, right? But then
Okay.
what's interesting is the tend part. So I know, and this is more so with women. I've seen this more so with women when they have anxiety about something, they have anxiety. They go nurture someone else,
Yeah.
and that appeases them. I find that one interesting. So it again, this has to be in the face of a perceived threat. So even though, let's say your kids don't see anything wrong, but you as the parent, you feel like something's wrong, you go, hey
You feel like the
baby.
roof is about to blow off, right? Yeah.
Right.
So we have some improvements to the model. I know it hasn't been popularized yet, but that is another response. But I just wanted to mention that because it really indicates what we do with the anxiety matters the most than just actually having it. But of course, this ties into emotional intelligence. We have to be aware that this is anxiety that I'm feeling. So having the definition and describing what it is will allow us to recognize it, put the name on it, and say, "Hey, anxiety, I see you. What are you trying to tell me? What's up? What's the word, John? Okay, I got a response to that."
You
Now,
know, it's
not all anxiety, not all anxious situations are going to have the same response, right? We don't all respond to it the same way. So then there's learned behaviors. You know, how did we respond to anxiety when we were babies? How did we respond to anxiety in our development as in childhood, right? So I don't want to jump too far ahead of myself because I'm going to start saying some terms that I wanted to kind of save for later. One of them being priming. That's a
Like
really, really good
stretch it
one.
out.
Mm.
Stretch it out.
Okay. No, well, I was going to ask because, it's for me, it seems like guys tend to either feel or react to anxiety in different ways, like you just said, than
Sure.
women do, right? So
Yes.
I wanted to see, like, if anybody is on right now, like, what do they define? Like, do they know that they have anxiety, and what have they dealt with anxiety? Like, I know for me, because of the fact that I have ADHD and my 17 hamsters, right? My anxiety, even though I'm feeling all of these symptoms somatically, what it looks like is that I'm just laying down curled up in a ball. And what nobody really knows a lot of time with women is that we have all of those ruminating thoughts that are in there, and the thoughts are just there. And so, it's like outwardly we appear like, we're just chilling, we're just taking a nap, we just got our legs kicked up or whatever, but it's not really that way. So I was just going back to the question of how do you define anxiety? A lot of times my kids won't even know that I have just been like, bah, right? Unless they come and ask me a question, because I'll just be sitting there chilling and they're looking at me like, well, we had no idea that you were going through all of this. And then, Sabadiaman, you talked about how, how it kind of manifests as a fight response for you, you know? Um,
Yes.
that's also, I think that's a little bit interesting. I mean, so does anybody that of the panelists, of the male panelists that we have here, I mean, do you guys ever like go into like the freeze part of it? Like if you're experiencing, anxiety, like is that how you define anxiety? Do you ever go into the freeze part? Is it just fight or flight for you guys?
I think it depends on the personality of the person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the personality where I freeze.
Mhm.
I don't have that, but I've seen it in other men. I've seen it happen, and uh, you know. So, what about you two?
King Newborn. Come on.
He's like, what?
We'll just go ahead and put it out there. That's basically what we're on right now. Is what are some ways that we normally cope with anxiety? But
Um, Excuse me for saying I would say for me,
All right.
anxiety was I want to say fight.
Mm.
And I say that as a child, like so many traumatic things happen that unbeknownst to myself as a child and not really understanding everything that's going on from death within the family, seeing death, funerals early on, coming from a poverty stricken environment. You don't become numb. You find a way to push through all the time. So I wasn't I guess you could say I wasn't molded to have an emotional response, even though chemically in the inside, my body was responding to the environment around me, surrounding set situations to push past the cry, push past being scared, the fear. Just you keep pushing. We got to push past the unknown till we feel like we know what's going on now. Like pushing past the pain is something as simple as, well, you going running and you fall down, you scrape your knee real, real bad. But it's part of you like, all right, is this going to enable me to keep playing? All right, so let's push past that to keep playing. So I'm going to say for me, no freeze. I've seen freeze before in people and they totally shut down and wet their pants. And I didn't think that was a true thing. But these are things you see in life and you be like, man, that's funny. Ha, ha, ha. You know, as a child. But then when you get older, you start learning terms and definitions of things and the meaning of things. You be like, oh, so that's why that happened. That's why that came about. Like Diamond said, you know, a trauma response, even though you was sleeping, you know what I'm saying, you would urinate in the bed. So, you know, all of that kind of like ties in together. But for me, I'm just saying for me, I don't know, I guess I look at anxiety like you know, or depression. You don't belong here. I need to understand why you're here. And at the same time, I need you to keep it moving so I can keep going. And that's pretty much the way my life has been and always has been since, you know, as a child. I even had family members even tell me, man, I don't even see how you sing. And I never understood why that was told to me until, you know, certain conversations would take place, because in I'm gonna say in the general sense, it would be freeze or flight, not necessarily fight through. And that's I'm only saying this because even as this podcast continues from day one to now, I've learned so much about depression, anxiety, the unknown, beyond my own understanding of what I've been taught. And I look at my life and I'm like, so I'm doing all this and ain't nobody took the time out to extend a hand to help me through any of this. You know, so certain conversations, even like right now to be asked, I don't even run from it. I stand tall and give you who I am. You either accept it or you don't, you know, and I'm okay either way, because I can look back and I can see everything I've been through to get right here. So, I mean, I don't know, I can't say I have time for anxiety or really depression, you know. So for me to try to tell somebody else, you got anxiety, how? What you ain't been through nothing, you know. and that's wrong. That's insensitive of me. You know, I should be able to look at them and say, oh, okay, I do understand. I know why you get like that. But there's a part of me that say, well, I wasn't allowed to be a victim to it. I wasn't allowed to subject myself to it and stay there. And I think some of that has to do with information that's been given to me that you are the greatest. You are the creator. You are creation.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's true, I am the creator and I am a creation. So no matter what's going on, there's always a plausible answer. Always. So I don't know. Let me get off my TED talk. But just that's how I look at it.
Love it. Love it.
Do you think that you were never given a chance to try to deal with your depression and anxiety? Like you were not allowed to cope with it? Because I know that was my experience coming up as a shorty. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't, when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to be depressed or have anxiety, and I didn't even know what those terms were until later on. Hey, Miss Fannie.
Hi, how are you?
Good, very good.
Peace, Queen. Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Just in case nobody knows who this is Miss Fannie, and she joined us last week, and she is a mental health counselor. I'm sorry, just to break in, because she kind of just like bloop, kind of just popped up. You mind introducing yourself, Miss Fannie?
I'm Fannie Rogers. Background has been working with adults as well as children with regard to therapy sessions. Have a master's in social work from Washington University, George Warren Brown.
Hey.
All right.
Thank you so very much. We really appreciate you being here, Miss Fannie.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the question, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine is avoidance. The rumination I haven't really been subject to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been avoidance. But that also just happens to be one of the criteria for PTSD, right? So some people, when they become anxious, they avoid situations, they avoid the triggers, they avoid the people, the objects, what have you. And that's how I know when I'm having an anxiety episode, is when I'm having not only just the feelings, but the thoughts are trying to talk me out of the thing.
Mm.
And a lot of the times sometimes there's a little bit of logic in there. Sometimes it's a little bit of rationality in there. Mm-hmm. But what I've been learning over the past 10 years is to really pay attention. I love mindfulness. I love mindfulness for everything. Mm-hmm. To really pay attention to what the thoughts are, inventory them, and then decide what I'm going to do with those thoughts. I also use distractions, healthy distractions, though. Mm-hmm. Not all distractions are healthy. That's typically a coping mechanism. And then in the past, this one wasn't good, though. This is a negative coping, though. Self-medicating. Especially when you have PTSD, it tends to be comorbid with substance abuse disorder. So those were like my main coping and how I was aware that I had anxiety.
I found it interesting. You said that sometimes the thoughts you try to find ways to not do. Like sometimes I do what you just said. I have anxiety, and sometimes I'm on my way to the doctor's office. It'll really kick in at that time, and I told myself, well, you don't have to go to that appointment. You could just turn around and go back home and miss that appointment, and you won't have to know what they have to say. So those little kind of, and you're right, the mind does play tricks on you with that, because it'll tell you how to get out of a situation that's becoming stressful for you.
That part.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. And you'll just fall into it, right?
Right. Sometimes I won't even know that I'm stressed. I won't even be giving thought to it. But then my body will start to respond.
Yes.
That something is wrong. And then somebody said, well, what are you anxious about? I said, that's just it. I don't know why the body is responding to being anxious, because I can't think of anything that I'm anxious about.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And that's essential.
That's the part that just trips me up with anxiety, that you don't have control. And I'm a control person, so it really bothers me when you lose that control with it.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, have you ever had the chills in the upper part of your arms, like from your elbow up?
Yeah.
Yeah. All this anxiety.
Yeah.
So you're saying that anxiety can also be a subconscious thing that hits
it
you
definitely
somatically.
Yes.
That is crazy.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier about the trigger. It is based on a pre-existing trigger.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
it's a pre-existing condition. So she's
Yeah.
100% right. So,
The
but and all
priming.
you can do is have awareness of it. So when you are
Mhm.
aware that the body, so now you're separating the observer from the, from the body itself. Because you can be aware that the body is going through this thing,
Mm-hmm.
but in your awareness, you're not going through it in your awareness. You just
Exactly.
realize
Wow.
that the
Exactly.
body is.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah. So
And
that's
then you're
so
trying to
that's
figure
the
out why the
duality.
body wants to do that, because I'm not thinking those thoughts. I'm not doing that.
Yes. Exactly.
So, okay, being a mental health counselor, I'm thinking that maybe there's like, is there a subconscious trigger that you guys know how to kind of weed out? Like it's amazing to me because every time I think that I'm anxious, I'm just like, oh, it's something crazy that I'm thinking about. Because remember, I got 17 hamsters at my, that are always in my brain at
Mhm.
one time. So I'm just thinking that maybe sometime now I'm feeling those anxious feelings, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's something that's subconscious that's in there. But do mental health practitioners, do you guys know how to like weed it out of somebody, like get it out of their subconscious so you can bring it to the
I
forefront?
don't. Maybe some others do, but I don't. I'm gonna be
Oh,
honest. I don't.
wow.
I actually do
Because if
that
I
in
did,
my
I'd practice
practice.
on myself first.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay. All
I
right.
I actually do that in my practice, and that's what we do. And again, not a mental health therapist or anything like that. I'm
Mhm.
just a life coach, and I help people through the same methods that I was also helped through, just awareness of self, and that's it.
Mhm.
And that.
But yeah, but that's the thing, is that you become, when you're in the face of these things, when you realize that the body. That's why it's important to do exactly what Miss Fannie said. Is you realize that the body is responding to this stress,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not. So there's a realization. Then you can start to explore what that is. So now you can start to explore why the body is responding in this kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
and then start to get to the root of the situation. And that's how you bring it to the forefront. It's not an overnight thing. It's something you have to put some work into.
True.
You're definitely going to have to sit down and quiet yourself, remove yourself from, if it's a situation that you can figure out, remove yourself from that situation and just still yourself and say, why? Why are you feeling like this? And keep asking why until you get down to the very root.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
I
then
love to
now
do
you
that.
have
Yeah.
identified it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So,
There's
So
Miss Fanny,
yeah,
you want
anxiety
to
in that.
can you talk a little
it
bit about
is.
what you've been doing? I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just thinking about
No,
Miss
go
Fanny.
ahead. Go
You've been
ahead. Go ahead.
talking about you said you've been dealing with your anxiety for a little bit here. Can you tell us like how did you first figure out that you have anxiety, and what do you do to cope with it?
You know what? It's so funny that you say that. I never really thought I had anxiety.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
I really didn't. I guess I just thought it was nervous energy or just being a little wired a little higher than other people sometimes. So I never related it to being that. It wasn't until after my son's death that the reality hit me. Then I started to think back about my mom. My
Mm.
mother was always taking some little nerve pills when I was a kid,
Oh.
which an
Oh,
indicator,
wow.
and this is hereditary, it's genetics. So the funny thing about this is the fact that my granddaughter said to me, she's 26, and she said to me one day that she was going to see a therapist. And I said, "You're going to see a therapist?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "What made you decide to go see a therapist?" She said, "Because," she called my mother Big Mama. She said, "Big Mama was wired, my mama is wired, and you're wired." She said, "So somewhere along the line it's going to get me, so I need to get coping skills early."
Wow.
I
What
was
a
blowed out the
realization.
ball game when she said that.
She said it's gonna get to me at some point in
I
time.
was
What a
blowed
So
out the ball game.
realization.
I said, "You are preconditioning yourself?" She said, "Yeah, I need strategies." She said,
Wow.
"I need
heard
anything
that.
else but be wired like the three of you are."
You're talking
Mm.
about breaking some curses. There
That's what
you
There
I'm
you
go.
go.
talking about.
Exactly.
Because we're always so reactive instead of preemptive. Like that is like
Woo. Mm.
that's
Yes.
That's a
I
amazing.
word.
I was blown out the ball game when she said it. So I finally laughed and said, "Girl, you were so right. Go get some help early. Don't be like us."
Excellent.
Like, don't do
Wow.
it like we did.
There you go.
Mm-mm.
Don't follow us. Because like I said, I remember my mom always having a nerve pill. She was taking a nerve pill. And I remember the color because I used to have to go to the drugstore to get a prescription. And she'd take them and looked like she just calmed down. Everything would be okay. And I thought, as years went by, and I thought, You got this from this woman. That's where this is coming from.
Wow. Wow.
So as a result of it, especially after my son passed, it really kicked in. That little situations and little things that would have never bothered me. I've always been able to go to the dentist. It started to get to the point that even a dental appointment started to make me anxious. That had never bothered me before.
I'm with you on that, boy. That's not a good appointment to make. It always hurts.
But my dentist
Exactly
didn't. So I started to think, now why am I getting so uncomfortable doing this? Cleanings. I started to get uncomfortable with cleaning, like they're gonna find something and it's gonna be the end of all or whatever. And when you said trying to talk yourself out of it, that's the hard part. The only thing that kind of really helps me, and my doctor kind of laughed, he said, I'm gonna give you Xanax.
Okay.
And I was opposed when he first said it and was a little offended by it. And I said, Xanax? He said, yeah. He said, you need a little something to take the edge off. He said, I'm going to give you the lowest dosage, 0.25. Even that seemed to be too much for me. So if I really feel like I'm having one of those moments where I tell myself to turn the car around, you don't have to do this doctor's appointment, so you can just go back home and reschedule another day. They can't make you come to the doctor's office. That's the rationale I start to give myself when you get anxious. You know what I'm talking about? You're nodding your head. You can give yourself all kind of rationales when you don't want to do something. So I will take that 0.25 pill, cut it in half. That little half does take the edge, let me go and be calm and can sit through anything then.
Wow. So the medicine actually helps you. That's a strategy that you use.
It does.
Okay.
It does.
All
And my
right.
doctor said, stop playing with yourself and not taking it.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh. She said
He
it with
said, go ahead. If
conviction.
you need
Stop
it, go ahead and
playing.
take it.
Stop playing.
She
Yeah,
did.
stop
She
playing
said
with yourself.
quick.
Go
Yeah.
ahead and take it. Because
And in the meantime,
you're miserable when you don't take it. And after that anxiety has built up, I don't know about the rest of you who have it, but when it builds up, it takes like a day or two to get yourself back in keel for me to be back in okay order.
yeah. See, that's the part I don't like because
Me either.
yeah.
I want to
And
just snap back, and it won't let you just snap back. It'll hold on to you a little longer.
Well, I had that experience. The only form of medication I've ever taken was one serving of NyQuil, and it knocked me out for 3 days.
Wow.
And I said, I'll never do it. Oh yeah. And after that, I was like, no more, no nothing. I don't like this thing of not being in control. You know.
Okay.
And that's the only reason that I like Xanax. My other doctor gave me some other stuff. I didn't like it. The Xanax is the only thing that when you wake up the next morning, it's not like you got a hangover from it. I don't feel out of sorts from it. I can tell there's a calmness going on within my body. And that's it. And by the end of the day, it's worn off. So I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the thing. But I always say too that whatever medication does, well, this is why it's important to find out what is it actually doing. What is it doing to your body to get you to that point? There are some chemical processes that it's actually shutting down.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and then but we have the control to shut those things down, even without the assistance of medication. Yeah.
Right.
But that's the work that so even with medication, as an orthomolecular nutritionist, this is the first thing in our clinical practice. What I learned to where what was it that medication and herbs are actually doing to a certain condition or disease within the body, right? And so, well, first, like, what is medication doing for it? And then we can apply. And so what needs to be done, medication literally, it addresses the symptoms. So that's what pharmaceuticals is good for, is to cut down it cuts down on the fight or flight response or the immune response to a certain situation, right? That's what it does. It never takes care of the issue itself.
True.
Whereas from a nutritional standpoint, when I'm talking about phytonutrients, macro and micronutrients. From that standpoint, they actually they deal with the condition itself, you know, and they don't do so much for the symptom until the condition is taken care of. And then you have the herbs, the botanicals. in the middle that actually does a little bit of both. Both what the pharmaceutical and the micro and macronutrients do as well. So as a orthomolecular nutritionist, I've learned to parallel pharmaceutical regimens with nutraceutical regimens. So the pharmaceuticals actually keeps the symptoms from overwhelming the patient, which is ultimately what kills the patient is the symptoms,
True.
right? So then it keeps these symptoms from overwhelming the patients, while the nutraceuticals takes care of the root of the problem. And then you wean them off the pharmaceuticals as the symptoms calm down, and then you keep them on a regimented um, um, program of the nutraceuticals, which eradicates the condition itself. So there's a way that we can do that, and there's still a certain way that we can do it from our conscious and mental conditioning as well. And so this is what I do. I teach people how to go through the spiritual cultivation of spiritual peace. It's peace within your spirit. That way you can take control of these hormonal automatic reactions by automatically taking care of the triggers, before you get to the incident itself. So you have to have a practice of recognizing what those things are at the time, like you were saying before, and then recognize that they're there, and then take that into a meditative practice. But it takes consistency, of course, and then you will find that you will be less susceptible to triggering those hormonal responses, because that's what all of that is hormonal responses.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
A lack of in there. Yeah, a couple of a podcast ago, we were talking about, or it might have been last week, I can't remember. We were talking about like mental health, and we were talking about how like a lot of mental health issues, like if you get your gut health correct, like it can help balance everything out. And King Newborn, he asked, what are some holistic approaches to anxiety and depression? And I think you pretty much just talked on that. You pretty much just touched on that, Brother Diamond. Talking about the holistic part of it, or the herbal part of it, and then the pharmaceutical part of it, and how those two can kind of coexist. I think that has a lot to do with it. And then Miss Fannie is like, look, take your pill if you need to take your pill.
Look, I agree with what he just said. I always go back and look for certain foods or things that I can eat in regarding the anxiety. I even think about my exercise. When I bump it up, I don't have a problem. It's when I haven't bumped it up that I can tell.
There you go. Yeah.
That's John's area right there. The whole entire get good body.
Yeah. I think it becomes a mind thing. I think the mind is so busy focusing on the exercise, trying to do it, get it all in, and I'm pumped up that adrenaline is working another way instead of against me, is working with
Absolutely.
me.
That's it.
Using the energy, channeling it. Yeah.
And you've changed the quality of the stress from distress to eustress.
There you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Which is more
because
positive.
Actually, I think I worked myself up into a tizzy one time so bad that I ended up going to the emergency room because I had one of those fight or flight moments, and the body was in just chaotic confusion about what was going on. So I politely called 911 to come pick me up. When I got there, the doctor said, well, you didn't have a heart attack. He said, you had a panic attack. I said, I knew something was going on. But I said, at my age, I need to come and be sure.
Yeah,
that's real talk. I've had one of
which
those
still
before.
can lead to a heart attack, by the way.
True.
It can.
Through tachycardia. It can increase the heart rate.
And I'm mindful of that because I tell my body when I'm having those moments, I say, listen, her body, I've been good to you. I'm not the smoker. I wasn't the drinker. I've taken care of you. That's right. To get crazy now.
Like, why you ain't doing me right? I'd have done you right.
Did you say that you called? Did you say you called her body?
Yes,
her body.
Listen, her body. I've been good to you.
I love it.
I heard that. I'm like, look at here, she. That's what I'm gonna start calling mine. She.
There you go. But I'm not telling. I don't have time for this. I have people to see, places to do, and things to do. So don't start.
There you go.
Listen, I'd rather wear out than rust out.
There you go.
I'm putting that on the T-shirt. Y'all think I'm playing? That's getting marketed.
Mm-hmm.
It seriously is. So, So I have another question. So you said that your coping mechanisms are, like you said, self-talk really doesn't work for you.
You know what? Self-talk doesn't, I mean, self-talk does not really work for me, but I'll tell you what I do find myself doing when it's one of those times and it's kind of hitting me. The first thing I'll usually say is, Lord, look, please help, please calm me down. I don't know why I'm out there like I am today, but let me reel it back in. But I have noticed that when I do soothing music, I'm better with music. And something else that I like to do, I'm a big reader. I like to read. So when I'm zoned someplace else and reading, I don't have time for that adrenaline to pump the wrong way.
Okay.
Working in my yard, it's a good relief for me.
Those are ways for you. Those are like self-meditation ways, right?
Right. It tends to bother me, if anything, more in the winter months, but I'm learning that I need to be active and busy. So even when it's cold, I bundle up and take myself to a gym class, even when I don't want to go. And I also realize that I am not the person who's meant to be at home on retirement. So that's why I took a part-time job.
Okay.
It makes me interact with other people. I don't focus on me. I'm focusing on them.
Okay. It's called paying it forward, gratitude. Yeah.
Right.
I heard that's one of the cures for depression. At least that's what my peoples had told me. They were like, when you focus on somebody else and don't necessarily focus on
because when
yourself
I get to talking to them, I realize whatever issues was bothering me matter minute.
That part.
Yeah.
So these are like healthy distractions, right?
There you go. Exactly.
Well, you change the ambience, and also just by being active. So some people, I've heard too, that the self-talk doesn't work. You have to literally change the direction of their current mindset by engaging into something else. Music is a great way to do it. Yeah. So I get you.
And I have more projects than cardiac pills. Because my friends will laugh and say, what's the new project at the house? I said, let me think.
I heard that.
Wow. Hey, you ever heard of that? There's a lady. I think I was looking at a documentary or something. This lady, in order to cope with her depression, and I'm thinking it was a lady. Yeah, it was a lady. Every 3 months, she would change her. She would remodel her kitchen. When I say remodel, I'm talking about the full cabinets, countertops, and everything. And once she completed, she would tear it all down and put another set. You understand how costly that is?
Oh yes.
But that's what she did in order to cope with her depression or whatever she was dealing with.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a true. And I was like, wow, that is something else.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Well, she had it because it was a nice house.
I'm like, that's cheese, shouty.
Man.
Wow.
She would tear it all out and redo it.
Your situation to a new level.
To a whole nother level.
I learned how to knit and I learned how to crochet when I was a child. My mom paid 50 cents a week, big money, for me to have lessons. No, big money, 50 cents a week. And actually, this past winter, since I am aware that the winter months and you're in and you're more isolated from people, you don't get to hang out, you don't get a chance to sit outside like you can in the summer. So I started back crocheting, and I was amazed at how calming and soothing that was for me.
Yes.
Now it's summertime, they're sitting in the bag now because I don't need it till winter again. So whatever I'm working on will be in the bag until winter. Then I'll go back and pick it up because I can get out. But I'm that person that cannot be in the house like that. It starts to bother me.
These are all really good ways to cope, man. I mean, and I know that was up there before, John, but I mean, like, these are really, really good ways to cope. I mean, who really is to say that there's one specific way how to deal with whatever mental health issue you're having?
And I'm laughing because I have a couple of friends. I have one friend that's probably has much anxiety as I do, and we laugh when we're together. I said, we're not good together. And she'll laugh, but I bought everybody one of these little benches that you can work in your garden. And you can flip it over and you be down on your knees and you can flip it back up and you can sit on it. So I gave her one, and I have one. And so every time I call her, I said, where are you? She said, girl, the best therapy in the world you gave me that bench. I'm out in my yard. And I laughed and I said, she said, my bench is in the yard. So I have a couple more friends. I gave everybody a bench. So they're all out in their yards now.
Yeah, I would like one of those.
Amazon's got them for like $30.
So you get out there, you get the vitamin D. You know, vitamin D, that's natural and that helps
There
you.
you go. There
And
you
And
then
go.
you're out there.
you're
Now the only thing
nurturing the
about it now, we need
plants,
a time
yo.
because we go out like 6 o'clock in the morning. We don't come in till 2.
I heard that.
Whoa.
So we have issues still because we need to come in.
Well, I'm just saying, but we see, a lot of mature people. This is what they end up going to: the crocheting or knitting, and
Mm-hmm.
the gardening, working with bonsai trees or what have you. With more than Asian, the Orient. But these are definitely relaxing things, and what they draw out of you. So but that's good to know. And like I say, if you have any of those benches laying around,
No,
You
I
can
don't have
reach
any
me.
hanging around. They're hanging around at Amazon.
at Amazon, okay,
At
I'll go
Amazon.
look on Amazon.
I think another good one is grounding. Grounding. So feeling your feet on the ground, feeling your thighs,
Yeah,
identifying the color of the wall paint, identifying objects in the room. Again, it's just a distraction, right? But it
Yeah,
brings you in the present moment, keeps you
right.
out of your head. Because, yeah, sometimes you're ruminating, thoughts are racing, as typical with anxiety. So,
Mm-hmm.
grounding can kind of get you, yeah, grounded in reality. And as we were saying earlier, a lot of the times we're reacting to an unconscious or misperceived threat,
Right,
right?
right,
So,
exactly.
grounding can
yeah,
help you, move
yeah.
from that.
And the
Yeah.
first
And
thing
some,
that you said though, John, taking your shoes off, putting your feet actually on earth.
Ooh.
They're saying the fact that we haven't done that, and we've been so conditioned not to do that as a society, that itself is what has led to this pandemic level of
Yeah.
anxiety and depression.
Not
Is
feeling
that
true,
we need to
rooted.
do that more,
true.
because
Yeah.
that connects us with our
Mm.
electromagnetic energy and connection with the earth. So absolutely,
Walking in
great,
the
great, great.
grass.
Yeah,
Oh,
great
Because
yes,
mention.
definitely do
recently
that.
I had to have a needle aspiration by ultrasound. My thyroid.
Mm.
The dentist felt something strange. She said, "See your doctor." I did. He said, "Oh, there's a nodule. Let's take a look at it." We did an ultrasound. Well, the ultrasound didn't look so hot on one of the nodules. So now what does that do? That starts to bring up that level of anxiety because what's going on? I have a nurse friend who often tease me and tell me, she said, "You won't die from the disease. You're going to die from the worry of the disease."
Dang.
Right, right.
She's right. And I think about that when I dialed her number, I started laughing. She said, "Okay, what are you dying from already today that's not even taking place?" So it's a standard
Wow.
joke between the two of us now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I'm
funny.
trying to remember, I was nice to her when she was a little kid, so I don't know why she's so smart up now. But anyway, having to have this, I asked her, I said, "So tell me about the needle aspiration." She said, "They're going to put a needle in your neck." Now, that sounds horrible when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
So the friend who already has anxiety, I said to her, "Have you ever had a needle aspiration?" Now you see me running around getting all these opinions, right? So I can
Mhm.
hear all these other voices in my head is what I'm doing. I'm collecting
Right.
data. So when she said, "Oh, I have a goiter," she said, "They do that every year to me." And I looked at her and I said, "You have it done every year." Now this is one who's anxious. And she said, "Oh, it's no big deal." Now that started to de-escalate the situation because here's somebody who's anxious like me, had it. She can relate to it. She said, "It's no big deal." She said, "They don't put you under. They deaden the area." She said, "They stick a needle like they're going to do acupuncture." She said, "They just take some cells off and it's fine, no biggie." I was like, okay. So that kind of gave me an idea of what's going to take place. So by the time I got there, I could actually go through with it. But it's like gathering that little information to calm myself and give myself
Yes.
a peace of mind.
Gotcha. I'm with you on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That
so,
that helps.
so when she said, "I have this done every year," and I said, "Why?" She said, "Because I have a garden and they have to check it every year." And I was
Mm,
like, "Oh, okay." And then
mm.
after it was over, now the man says, "Well, it could be benign. It could be something really serious. It doesn't have to be, it could be cancerous. It doesn't have to be benign." So then the man starts to play on that again.
Mm.
Mm.
My nurse friend said, "Go sit down. There's nothing wrong with you." She said, "Other than the fact you're going crazy." And I said, "Well, that's insulting for you to say that." I said, "I should have left you in the house when you were a little kid and not let you come run with us." She's like, "Girl, calm down and stop reading Google."
I feel like we have the same friend in common, Miss Fannie, because I got one of them too. And she's a nurse, and she tells me all the time, go sit your tail down somewhere. All the
Okay.
time. So, Murray, if you're listening, this one goes out to you, kid.
Yeah, my friend is named Gloria. So yeah, it's good to have friends.
We always got one.
Y'all sound like Melman, which is the giraffe on Madagascar.
Oh, listen, all the time. I'm like, wait, but my big toe, it just decided it wanted to shift 2 centimeters to the left. So I don't know. I'm that one. I Google everything. Sir Google gives me life. That and yeah, I have my anxiety, but I try to figure out my ways to get
when
it down.
pandemic hit, and we were trying to figure out where to get shots when they first started giving out the shots. So since I'm the social worker, my friends called and said, well, you found the place for us. So I'm calling all over, getting everybody set up and going online and putting people's names in, addresses, so we can get our shots. I ended up going to the clinic out here in Berkeley. And on the wall, they said the most profound thing. If you have Google for a doctor, you're crazier than Google is.
Dang. Okay.
Well, I know where I fit in. I just learned.
When I read that, it was like, oh, they are talking to me.
Oh, Lord.
I don't even read my chart anymore. I don't even want to know what's in my chart. I tell my doctor, take my chart away from me. I don't need to read. You call me if there's something serious. I don't need to read anything.
Oh my Lord.
So I don't touch it anymore. I'm done.
So look, that can be tied back into the question that that Skywalker put up. What are some causes and influences of anxiety, right? Health. How about your health? Like if you're worried about your health, that's a big one. I know for me, I got a lot of ailments. So my health, and especially it being something that's kind of out of my control, I know that causes anxiety for me.
That is really a key factor. And I think family situations, when family is not on the right accord, or the accord that you think they should be on, those are stresses, and it brings on anxiety, conflict within the family.
Ooh, it does.
You want to talk about it? Look, I was about to say, we want to talk about it. Y'all ready for that?
Conflict.
Let me put my boots on. It's getting deep. So hold on for a second.
Relationships.
Right, relationships are hard. And family members make them real difficult sometimes, because something could have happened 50 years ago. You're through with it. They go dig it up. And let's talk about it. Where were you 50 years ago when we could have had a discussion and I probably really remember what it was about?
Right.
This ties back into the fact that we cannot resolve conflict. It should be a whole nother show. Black folks, our generational trauma, and how we cannot resolve conflict. Let's talk about it, because
conflict resolution.
It's part one. And we think in the schools, you try to get the kids to understand conflict resolution. But I think it's an ongoing process as long as you're on earth with other people.
Yes.
Period.
Well, it is. That's why it's definitely a skill
Yes.
that also needs to be at least taken on by everybody. Everybody should be familiar with some methods of conflict resolution.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not used to conflict, it breeds anxiety.
Yes. And the job stresses.
Repeat exposure.
And we have to know what we're capable of doing, what we want to do, and what people can have expectations of you on a job, but it comes down to what are your expectations for yourself on that very job.
Exactly. Take my man Skywalker for a sec. Let me pick on him for a second.
Okay.
Because he reminds me so much of me, right?
Okay.
And what I love about this beautiful brother is that he is coming into a profound understanding of himself. And part of what it is, because I can see where things kind of fall on his shoulder, and he get like, oh man. I'm like, man, you got this. You got this. He got all of the tools, all of the skills, all of the talents and everything to bring it all together, because he does it 100% of the time. But yet every time he gets a little anxiety about it when it falls on his shoulder. Every single time.
Yeah, he's calling it because it's true.
It's true. But I know. But that's why I'm here to remind you, brother.
And you know what? That's a very key ingredient that you're touching on right here, is that empathy there's a relaxing effect with that, where it's like, yo, I know where you're coming from, John. I'm there. I'm the same way. And yeah, that's comforting. It's just like, oh, you've been through this kind of anxiety. Okay, well, shoot.
Hey,
Oh,
check
man.
it
And
out.
I found
Twin
it.
and befriend.
Yeah, I found a
Yeah,
new
to
way.
be friends. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
When I had to be at a job and really needed the benefits of the check from that job, I think it was more anxiety then because you're under pressure. You had deadlines, you had quotas to make, and all of that. Now that I work part-time, when people send me an email from my part-time job and they want something done and they think they're going to get a little edge or a confrontation, I email right back and say, how do you want me to do this? My girlfriend said, why are you so compliant? I said, because it don't matter. This is not a livelihood anymore. So I'm in a different position, in a different place in my life. I could care less. If you want me to write XYZ, it's XYZ, even though I know it should have been PQR. I don't care. I'm going to give you what you want. It's your company, your job.
So can we actually say that keeping control of everything is something else that brings undue anxiety?
Yes, it does.
Like it sounds like what you just said in there is that you released the need to be attached to the outcome of what was happening in that. Man, listen, because I'm gonna tell you myself, I live every day with no control and I love it. I'm just like, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I have to do whatever's gonna feed my dopamine.
There you go.
And that's the way, that's what keeps me compliant.
I'm not confrontational. So if you say, and since you're in therapy, you know, when you got to put a diagnostic code and people want to get paid, if you tell me the code should be F21.97, it can be F21.97. I'm not going to argue with you. I don't care. Because you want your money, and guess what? I want mine.
I want mine too.
So we can do it however you want. It's your company, your job, and I'll do it the way you say do it. I am not that person to say, well, you know what? You gave that code, and I think Mrs. So-and-so should have been coded F3297. Nope, I don't care. If that's what you believe she is, that's fine.
That's it.
And I think it has caught this lady off guard because she's looking for that confrontation, and she's not getting it.
She's not going to get it.
No, I'm not playing that. The two other people have quit already because I think they were in that confrontation. And one girl called me, and when she did, she said, well, doesn't it bother you? I said, no. I said, we're at two different points in our life. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I have 2 checks that go to the bank. So however you want me to do something, I can do it. I just don't care. I'm sorry. And it's not that I don't care about the people, I do, but I'm not going to care about your policies and your demands and your authority. It's irrelevant to me at this point.
What you got, John?
Have any of you ever experienced performance anxiety related to sex?
Ooh, we don't have another hour.
I had to cut my cam off on that one. No. I'm kidding.
I wanted to throw that out there because, you know, there's a lot of shaming on the internet. There's a whole lot of shaming.
But I can see that could be a problem.
Yeah, right. So you have that expectation. It's an idea. I have to perform this way. You're trying to impress the person, right? And sometimes you don't even know that your performance anxiety, well, some people do know, but there are those who don't realize that their performance anxiety is rooted in some sort of trauma. That could be real. It could be sexual trauma, right? But they don't know that. Right. So I wanted to kind of, you know.
Well, just think about it. When you meet a person for the first time, you want to make a good impression.
Yes.
Don't dare like them. You really want to make a good impression then. If you don't like them, you could care less probably. But if you like them, you really want to shine and show all of you. So imagine when you go through all of that. And I've always, this is not a negative comment, but I've always felt that the burden of a relationship to me lies on the man. You have to be the one to make the approach. Now, you do have forward women, but for the most part, men still like to do the chase. You don't like to be chased.
Yeah.
Women tend to forget that.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the chase, you want to be able to have the confidence when you walk up and say, can I have this dance? And I know it's got to be hurting when you ask the woman for a dance and they look at you and say, no, I want to dance. You walk away Harry comes over and say, you want to dance? And she said, oh yeah, she's on the dance floor. So then you start to look at yourself and think, now, what did he have going for him that she said yes and she said no to me?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So it can bring
That's
on
a big deal.
anxiety.
That's from rejection. Yeah.
It can
Yeah.
work on all of that. So even when you're dating people and that level, you're just starting out and you're on the good foot and you're showing all your good sides, and then something can happen and they see a little bad side of you or a little negative part of you. Now you're wondering, well, is this something I'm going to be seeing all the time in them? Or I don't like what I saw. But we tend to forget that people are human and nobody's perfect. And we put expectations on people that we shouldn't put on them, because we make them into somebody that they're not, because we're dreaming of what we want and not who they really are.
Over appraisal.
Yes. Yeah, we do that. And I think, and I won't say any one sex is any bigger at doing it. I think men and women are equal in that respect. Women might go a tad little bit overboard with it, because they'll start to judge the man by his financial status, what they think he should have already. And when I hear conversations like, I'm thinking, you want him to have, so you won't have to worry about doing anything to get it. And for most of them, they do feel like you should be that provider and I shouldn't have to worry about anything.
Well, I always say they have these because there was a time when that was the norm, when,
and that's no longer the norm.
And then but women fought for the right to be equal to men. So now that means you got to get out there and you do your thing. You do your part and he do his part. That's just how it is now. That's what you fought for. That's what you got.
And I laugh because I'm with you. I agree. I'm laughing and thinking back. I grew up in a two-family house, a mother and a father. And it was so funny to me that as a child growing up, I didn't see a line drawn and this is women's work and this is a man's work. My father helped my mother out in terms of, we did things when she was at work so she would not have to come home to deal with those things, like going to the grocery store. My father would do laundry. My mother hated it, but he would do laundry. My father could cook, so he would cook. He messed up every pot in the kitchen, but he cooked. And when he was at work, this is probably before your time. Remember the coal man used to come and bring the coal before we got gas furnaces?
Oh, well, that was at a time. I don't think any of us was there at that time.
Okay.
We'll take your word for it.
I remember the coal man used to come. He dumped the coal on the front and you had to get your shovel and get it in and put it in your little bin in the basement. So my brother and I would have to do that. And my mom helped out. If the grass needed to be cut, we cut the grass so my father wouldn't have to do that. So they always worked as a team to help each other. He never saw anything as her job. And I never heard my mom said, I'm letting their father babysit. I can remember my father taking us on vacation because my mom had to work and couldn't take off. And he said, I'm going to give you a break. I got the kids. Take a break. I got them. I'm gone with them. So I didn't grow up with that. So when people want to go and identify, well, I don't think I should have to cook. We should do 50-50 on the cooking. You'll get those comments, or I thought this relationship, and I tell people there's no 50-50 in any relationship. Somebody's got to get a 20-80.
Well, but it's 100-100. And I say that because everybody give 100%.
Right. You should be.
You do what you got to do to complement. So that's the word that everybody is missing in relationships. At any time, you're to be complementary. And those masculine and feminine roles, they fluctuate.
Yes, they do.
They fluctuate.
At any given time.
At any given time.
Right.
And sometimes it's the man taking on the feminine role. Because that's not a woman to be feminine. Femininity is a energetic polarity that always complements the masculine. So sometimes it might be her bringing out the potential of whatever. And that's the masculine aspect.
Right.
And your job as the man then is to nurture that, support her with nourishment. That's the feminine aspect.
True.
So that's the main thing. And when you can't get that right, that's why relationships are full of anxiety and depression these days. Okay. It's exactly what it is.
Because people have false expectations of what they think people are about.
100%.
Yeah, and they want to live up to, or if not, they put an idea in their head about what a person should be, and when they don't live up to it, then I'm through with it.
But isn't that due to mainstream media, social media? It's a lot of this stuff is being put. They're indoctrinated into this concept,
well,
but they don't realize it.
Yeah, and not only that, when you've got a woman who's making six figures and the man is not making six figures, she done put herself in charge real quick.
Well, I won't mind that. I mean, I'm just saying.
You sound like a guy in a class I had. They asked him would it be a problem if his wife made more money than him. He said, no, as long as she comes home and shares it, I can care less.
I don't care. I don't care. It's not going to change my position.
That's a good response, right?
It ain't going to change my position. Because the money would not ever be the leader in my home. Money would not ever be the leader in my home. I'm always that.
Look, and I came back to this. Hello. What happened?
I'm always that. And and that's wherever I go. So that's just how it is. Doesn't matter who make it.
Let's address this prompt down here. True or false? Prayer can help reduce anxiety symptoms.
False.
Okay.
You think it's false?
I think it's false because prayer is an action. But what you want is the response. I would say it's the response, not the prayer itself. It's the response. Because sometimes unanswered prayers leads to anxiety.
True.
Okay.
We were talking earlier today about Ramses II, who was in the Battle of Kadesh, and y'all kind of bear with me. I understand. I don't feel like going into a deep history, but in ancient Egypt, Ramses II was in the Battle of Kadesh, and he was losing the war there, right? And he stopped and asked his father, Amin-Ra, I have done everything. I've been the dutiful son. I have done everything you said, and I've done my prayers. I've done my my good deeds and all this stuff. Why are you forsaking me? So he went into that war thinking that because he had done everything, he done his prayers and everything, but when his deeds were unanswered by what he called his father Amin-Ra, that's when anxiety kicked in. So it's not the prayer. That's just the act. That's just you. That's you putting in your order. But when that order goes unanswered, then anxiety remains.
That's
so you know what they say, faith without works kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's the works, it's the results. It's the results that we always want. It's not the action of putting it in.
I personally believe that prayer can help depending on your level, like where you are in your faith.
Okay.
That's funny you say. That's exactly what I was thinking. Where you are in your level of faith.
Yeah. That's what I personally believe. I mean, because I watched this show called Heal, right? And it was talking about people who actually like heal, like go into remission after having like these life-ending diseases, and I'm sure that mental health was a part of that, anxiety, depression, all that kind of good stuff. And they said one of the things for people who have healed from these radical life-altering diseases, one of the things is to actually be in tune with some type of higher power. Right. So, and it's like depending on what level it is. So I think that prayer helps depending on what your level is and what you connect to as your higher power, and how much credence you give that in your life. That's what I think.
I think what you just described was not prayer, though. That is a higher conscious awareness. That's different. That's a little different than prayer. I mean, just what you described, that's the way I see it anyway.
I think
that's a higher.
Well, for me, I think that, like prayer can be a lots of different things, but I think prayer for one is connecting to whatever your higher power is. Like I think that's like when you say that meditation is X, Y, and Z, and meditation is this one.
That's
thing,
the connection.
But this different people have different terms for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think
that's kind of like where we always mess up because what there's specific definitions for each. People cannot take on what it means to them. Then that's like saying a red light don't mean the same thing to all of us. How much trouble will we be in? But that connection and that realization and that connecting is a meditative practice, not a prayerful practice. Is a meditative practice. Well,
I don't know.
Ooh.
Tomato,
I'm just saying.
tomato. Tomato,
Yeah,
tomato.
No, it's not
I,
the same.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
it's
not the
kind
potato,
of hard
same.
to
potato.
distinguish it, but I will say this because I know where Ivy is going with that, right? So
Hmm.
there is research that supports that prayer does help. Now it's not going to help for everybody because everyone doesn't pray the same way, right? But there is something that I want us to kind of recap and reach back on is the self-talk mechanism that kind of
Uh-huh.
aggravates, right? So we have ruminating thoughts, right? And so prayer is still a form of self-talk, right? So even though you're communicating upward, if you truly believe in the words that you're speaking, this is still self-talk. All right. So
Hmm.
you're not ruminating anymore when you're praying. So in some ways, yes, prayer can, right? The potential is there,
Okay.
right? And I also kind of agree with Diamond in the sense of, all right, there is a meditative state, but it's also about the direction, right? So it's also sort of like the social support um remedy that we were talking about earlier, where we're talking
Hmm.
about befriend and tend and what is it, tend and befriend, right? So when you're
Hmm.
praying, it's like you're
Yeah.
talking, you're having a conversation. So it
Hmm.
doesn't have to always be, dear God, I'm asking for this, I'm
Yeah.
requesting this. People don't
Yeah.
always pray like it's just a conversation, right? You're just
Okay.
you're sending it up. You're not
Hmm.
necessarily asking for anything, but you could just be talking it out, right? But again, there's also the question of, well, what's the difference between prayer and just talking to yourself, right? Because
Yeah.
there's individuals out there that don't believe in God, but they're talking to themselves in the same way that they would be praying to God. It's just that they're not saying, oh, benevolent Father. They're not giving it a title per se, but they're still talking to
Mhm.
themselves.
Right. They're
They're
not
speaking
going
their,
and they're not going in supplication. They're basically
Right.
having a one-to-one conversation, you
Right.
know?
And
Yeah.
yeah.
I,
that
Mm.
just comes
Or
down
there's
to
like
where.
features of prayer. There's something
Uh-huh.
about it, right?
Yeah.
That's giving you a sense of comfort. The even the idea of you being heard could
Mhm.
be a self-soothing effect, right?
Hmm.
Sound like another show, man.
Yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah.
get
It
it
could
going.
be. It definitely could
It
be.
could. Yeah,
Cause,
It
cause
definitely could
that
we
be.
done
can, that
blocked out
can,
like
that
two
can.
of them, didn't we?
Hey,
We blocked out two of them.
hey,
Fannie, would you like to
hey.
respond to that prompt right there? True or false?
Say it again,
Miss
I'm
Jay.
Fanny?
sorry. I agree with King Newborn. This is God level chiming in. I'm on the highway right now. But I agree with King Newborn. Prayer versus meditation. That right there is a show. Go ahead and continue.
She taking
She's
notes.
like, continue on the airborne mission. Yeah.
But Fannie, did you want to reply to that, the true or false prompt?
I think, like you said earlier, when it's your faith. If you believe that prayer can help you, I personally, when I'm really feeling overwhelmed by anxiety or symptoms of it, I do pray. I do
Hmm.
pray, and I have prayed and asked that this be something that I'm helped manage, or I get better control of, or get a better understanding as to what my triggers are, and the police take it away from me.
Yeah. Hmm.
Mm.
But that's
Yeah.
my
And
faith.
yeah. Well, I want to say that too. What we're talking about is also different levels of, not levels, but different concepts of peering into what this is. I come
Mm.
from a very ancient spiritual system where that distinctly and it's not, we do pray, but there's a different action or function when it comes to prayer uh versus meditation. So no, so I get that. So it's just a difference in the way we see it. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks, you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Miss Fanny, for coming on and talking about
No problem.
anxiety and
Joy.
mental health. You have been awesome for like these last
Very
2
awesome.
weeks. You've
Yes,
Thank
you've
you.
ma'am.
given us
Appreciate
so
it.
much. Like, yeah, seriously. Oh, last, anybody wants, Miss Fanny, before we get ready to, before we get ready to close everything down, would you talk about just a little to let our viewers know, what would you like when you have anxiety? When is it time to reach out to a doctor?
When do you need to talk to the doctor about it?
Yeah, when do you think that if you're starting to have anxiety, when is the time when you need to actually reach out to a doctor?
Like
Good
when is it
question.
severe, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it to me, for me myself personally, I think I was in denial that anything was going on. But then I noticed when I look around and you watch other people handle stressful situations, then I start to reflect and look at myself and say, now, they handled it. Why are you not able to handle some of the things that are just everyday things that shouldn't be that hard for you to deal with? So I did mention it to my doctor, because I tell you what really made me mention it to the doctor. I think it was the heart palpitations that I was having with it, which was frightening and scary for me. So when I mentioned it to my doctor, naturally he said, well, we're going to wear a heart monitor and see what's going on. Well, when we wore the heart monitor, it wasn't so much that ended up being the palpitations, but he discovered I had an irregular heartbeat. So I guess when the irregular heartbeat was kicking in from the anxiety and sitting his body in this tailspin, he was like, oh no, he said, you've got irregular heartbeat. So when I started getting medication for that, that made a difference. I'm thinking in the anxiety, it wasn't like it had been, but it was still there. But I think if you've got it, you need to talk to somebody. Like, if you're not going to talk to your primary care, then you need to seek out mental health professionals and talk about it. Because it's not something you have to be burdened down with the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, with that question though, just to piggyback off of it, how do you know when anxiety is truly a problem? Because, like I say, we all have it in a certain degree, but what's an unhealthy degree or expression of anxiety? Like, how do you know
I think
when
that's an individual, and that's the individual call. You will be the only person that knows your body better than anybody else and how you respond to situations.
Mm-hmm.
That's facts. Okay. Yeah. I guess when you feel enough somatic symptoms, then it's time to probably go and talk to somebody.
I mean, like I say, talking about I'm walking out of my door, and all of a sudden I'm getting anxious because I'm starting to perceive that I'm going to have an accident. Something that's totally unrelated to you just walking out of your door. So it's when you're having thoughts like that about everything, and everything has got you in a tailspin, it's time to talk to somebody about it, because you're making yourself miserable.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Thanks again, Miss Fannie.
Okay, thank you. I've enjoyed. Nice meeting you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you
give
so
a round of applause, you guys.
Have a good weekend. Enjoy tomorrow.
All right, we sure will.
Okay,
thank you. Thanks everybody for being on the panel. King Newborn, thank you for everything. Brother Saba Diamond. I'm trying not to sing your name. That's what I'm saying right now. John Skywalker, the slick talker, thank you so very much. And from an undisclosed location, God level, we still see you, sis. We definitely still see you on there. So we just appreciate it. Like, I've always said that this podcast is just bringing things to light that, we haven't always talked about. So I'm grateful also. Look, Facebook, whoever this Facebook user is, I don't know. I'm not necessarily sure, but it says, so grateful for this podcast. I've learned so much information about different topics. I mean, this is the truth, man. It's like, you guys are like, you're out here healing lives. So I really appreciate everybody on the panel. And John Skywalker, I don't have no poetry, not anything that I would necessarily have to share. So if you would go ahead and take us out, brother, and thank you for your words. Yeah, take us out.
So I'm actually going to read tonight. I do not like reading. I do not like reading my poetry.
It's okay. We won't hold it against you, brother.
But this one I haven't committed to memory. There's ironically some anxiety surrounding that. But I'm going to give it my best. This is titled PTSD. All right. Trauma. The wounding thing. The near-death experience that bullied me into realizing my fragility. The unforgettable theme that you exhaust yourself in forgetting. The cinematic shock value that you didn't pay for in advance, but as you advance, you pay for with suffering. The altar where your innocence was buried and a monstrous wisdom was reborn. The forbidden fruit with the juicy venom, cursed to travel the veins of your thinking. Trauma. A beautiful name with an ugly personality. She is misunderstood by most. Her artwork is protected unconsciously in my mind, and her appearance almost killed me once. Sometimes I wish it didn't. Other times I wished she finished the job. Intrusion. Thoughts of suicide invade my mind like the time I invaded Iraq and survived. Thoughts of her infidelity rape me of my inner peace, or maybe I'm just a slut for chaos, shielding my mind's eye from the heartlessness of these thoughts. Though they attack my heart, my willful dementia is a semblance of safety, memories of war that fashion discomfort for my face to wear. A brotherly love lost, so tears have found my eyes to hug them till they suffocate red. Irrational ideas breaking and entering my conscious self with the perceived intent of larceny. Doubting myself because maybe joy, truth, happiness, contentment, and acceptance were never mine. And these intrusions are the proper owners reclaiming their possessions. Avoidance. I won't allow her in. I don't want to be around these people. Why can't I just hang out with silence? He's the best friend who delivers me from the worst dialogues. Uh-oh, hold on. I lost my place. Hold on. I can't talk to her. I won't self-incriminate my pain to someone who will judge me either way. I see no evidence of your capacity to understand, so I will plead the fifth and drink a fifth of Henny. Numb myself so you cannot touch me emotionally. I can't watch this. I shouldn't hear this. I can't be here for this. This smell reminds me of, you know what? Never mind. It's been 36 days since my last episode. I mean, safety violation. Hope I don't trip again. Hope I don't fall again as I run from these warning signs. Trauma gets triggered. Sanity is blown to pieces. A splattered ego stains the walls of my mental prison cell. Let me grab my keys and abandon my family without saying a word, just for a while. You see, war is at home, so I must escape just for the night, even if it's a sleepless one. Let me take a psychotic break for a drive before my anger accelerates. And if this is the flight where I die, it was delayed a long time ago, so it's about damn time. Hyperarousal, the rebellion without a cause. The rage bleeding from my larynx till they disfigure my words into an uninterpretable pain, clenching my teeth as my mood swings like left hooks. I can't bob nor weave this feeling. It's not hard to see that I am easily irritated. So I blame you for my shaded attitude while yours remains more clear than a symphony of epiphanies. The only time you love me is when I'm cordial or nice, or when the times are exciting. Fighting for peace is all I know. So I don't know if I don't want to fight anymore. Please don't say that. Please don't do this. Calmness is slipping through my hands like blood from slit wrists, eyes bulging, pulses speeding, breath is too fast to catch. Been walking with a rucksack of misery, my vigilance as my rifle. So yes, looks can kill. 3-round burst of anger, no safety. No one is safe. No one can save me. Why do you keep reminding me of how violent I can be? I am a terrorist in my own home, but a hero to my country. If a battle cries in isolation, is it logically sound? Salute.
Right.
Wonderful.
Love it. That was off
Thank
the
you.
chain.
Yeah.
The
That was
goosebumps,
off the chain.
the goosies. Oh, wow.
That was
Yeah.
Thank
personal.
you. I felt that on the cellular level, for real.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much again. Appreciate it, man. Take us out, bro. Take us out. Take us out.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.